The great hall of the Silver Crown Pack had never been so silent. Hundreds of wolves stood shoulder to shoulder beneath the high stone arches, their breath held, their eyes fixed on the two figures at the center of the room. Alpha King Damian Cross stood tall in his ceremonial coat, his jaw tight, his gray eyes cold as winter stone. Before him stood a young woman in a simple gray dress, her chestnut hair falling loose over her shoulders, her hands folded calmly in front of her, though her heart pounded like a war drum. Her name was Elena Voss. She was a healer from the Border Pack, known for her gentle hands and her quiet strength. She had come to the treaty ceremony only to represent her small pack, never expecting that the moment her eyes met the Alpha Kings, something ancient and undeniable would awaken between them. The mate bond. It struck like lightning, a pull so strong that several wolves in the hall gasped aloud. Elena's wolf howled inside her, joy and recognition flooding through her veins. She looked up at Damian, waiting for him to feel the same, to reach for her the way every story she had ever heard said a true mate would. Instead, his face hardened. "No," he said, so quietly that only those nearest to him heard it. Then, louder, so the whole hall could hear, "This is not real." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Elena's smile faltered. "Damian, you will address me as Alpha King," he snapped, and the sharpness in his voice cut through her like a blade. He turned to his beta, standing rigid at his side. "Marcus, escort the border envoy from the hall, immediately." Elena stood frozen, disbelief washing over her. "You feel it too. I know you do. Why would you deny it?" Damian's eyes flickered, just for a moment, with something that might have been pain. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by the same iron control that had ruled his life since the betrayal 3 years ago. Since a woman he had once trusted, once believed was his fated mate, had used that very bond to feed secrets to a rival pack. That betrayal had nearly cost him his throne, his warriors, his life. He had sworn never again to let a bond blind him to a trap. "I feel nothing but suspicion," he said, forcing the words out like stones. "The Border Pack has reason to want influence over the crown. This bond, if it is even real, could easily be engineered by dark magic or clever deception. I will not risk my pack for a feeling." "It is not a trick," Elena said, her voice trembling now, though she fought to keep it steady. "I did not ask for this bond. I did not seek you out. I came only to represent my people." "Then you will return to them," Damian said. He turned his back to her, unable to look at her a moment longer without his resolve cracking. "You have until the moon rises tomorrow night to leave Crown territory. If you are found within our borders after that, you will be treated as a trespasser." Gasps and murmurs spread through the hall, but no one dared speak against their king. Elena stood there a moment longer, waiting for him to turn around, to take it back, to look at her with anything other than that cold, closed expression. He did not turn. She lifted her chin, swallowed the tears burning in her throat, and walked out of the hall without another word. She would not beg. She would not let him see her break. That night, Elena packed the few belongings she had brought with her and left before the sun rose, unwilling to wait for the humiliation of being escorted out like a criminal. She traveled for 3 days, moving further and further from Crown territory, until she reached a quiet village nestled between 2 forested hills, far from any pack's claimed land. There she took a small room above a bakery, telling the kind old woman who owned it that her name was Elena Marsh, a widow seeking peace. Weeks passed. Elena tried to build a life, tending to the sick in the village the way she had always done, finding comfort in the simple rhythm of helping others. But something was different. She tired more easily. Her sense of smell sharpened. And one morning, kneeling beside her wash basin, she understood why. She was pregnant. Her hands trembled as she pressed them to her stomach, a wave of fear and wonder crashing over her at once. A child of the Alpha King. Perhaps children, for wolves rarely carried true mate pregnancies without doubling, some ancient law of nature ensuring an heir would never come alone. She thought of returning to Crown territory, of telling Damian what had happened, but the memory of his cold eyes, his refusal to even consider that the bond was real, stopped her. If he had doubted her honesty as a mate, He would doubt her even more once she showed up carrying his heirs. He might think she had planned this, that she was still trying to manipulate her way into his pack. She could not bear that thought. So she stayed hidden. She found an old wolf healer named Greta, who lived on the edge of the village, and asked no questions, only offering her tea and quiet company through the long months of her pregnancy. Greta was the one who first noticed the faint crescent shapes forming along the curve of Elena's belly, visible only under moonlight. "Do you know what this means?" Greta asked one evening, her weathered hand resting gently over the mark. Elena shook her head, though a strange feeling stirred in her chest. "These are royal marks," Greta said. "I have seen them only once before, many years ago, on a queen of the Ashwood pack. They appear only when the child carries true alpha blood, blood strong enough to lead. And two marks, side by side like this." She paused, her eyes widening slightly. "Means you carry twins, child. Twins of royal blood." Elena's breath caught. Twins. The Alpha King's heirs, growing inside her, unknown to the father who had sent her away. She told no one else. She continued her quiet life in the village, watching her belly grow, feeling the flutter of two small heartbeats within her own. She dreamed sometimes of Damien's face, not the cold mask he had worn in the hall, but the flicker of pain she had seen just before he turned away. She wondered if he ever thought of her. She told herself it did not matter. She would raise her children with love, with or without him. Back in Crown territory, the Alpha King was unraveling. It began subtly. Damien stopped sleeping through the night, pacing his chambers instead, his wolf restless and snarling beneath his skin. He grew short-tempered with his council, distracted during meetings, distant from his warriors who had once looked to him as an unshakable leader. His beta, Marcus, watched the change with growing concern, though he said nothing at first, respecting his alpha's silence. But after 2 months of watching Damien grow thinner, paler, more hollow with each passing week, Marcus could stay silent no longer. "You are dying," Marcus said bluntly one evening, finding Damien alone in the war room, staring blankly at a map he was not truly seeing. "Slowly, but you are dying. A wolf cannot survive long after rejecting a true mate bond. You know this." "I know the risks," Damien said flatly. "I made my choice." "Did you?" Marcus stepped closer. "Or did fear make it for you?" Damien's head snapped up, fury flashing in his eyes, but Marcus did not back down. "I have known you since we were pups," Marcus said. "I watched what Celine's betrayal did to you. I understand why you doubted this new bond, but I have spent the last 2 months investigating the accusations that were quietly circulating about the border envoy before the ceremony, the ones that convinced you she might be a spy." Damien's jaw tightened. "And?" "They were false," Marcus said. "Fabricated by Councilman Arden, the same man who orchestrated Celine's betrayal 3 years ago. It seems he feared a new true mate bond would strengthen your rule and diminish his influence over you. So he planted rumors before you ever met the envoy, poisoning your mind against her before she even walked into the hall." The map beneath Damien's hands crumpled slightly, under the sudden pressure of his grip. "You are certain?" "I have his own letters as proof," Marcus said quietly. "I only wish I had found them sooner." Damien closed his eyes, the weight of what he had done crashing over him all at once. He had sent away his true mate, the woman fate itself had chosen for him, based on lies spun by a man who wanted only to protect his own power. He had watched her walk out of that hall with her head held high, refusing to break in front of him, and he had let her go without a single word of doubt in his own judgment. "Where is she?" Damien asked, his voice hoarse. "We do not know," Marcus admitted. "She left before sunrise, the day after the ceremony. No one has seen her since." Damien's wolf howled in anguish beneath his skin. He had to find her. He did not know what he would say, how he could possibly make right what he had broken, but he could not let another day pass without trying. He sent trackers across every territory bordering the Crown lands, promising any reward for information leading to Elena's whereabouts. Weeks passed with no success, and Damien's desperation grew sharper with each failed report. He barely ate. He barely slept. His council began to whisper that their Alpha King was fading before their eyes, and still no word came of the woman he sought. Then, on a cold evening, 9 months after the ceremony, a tracker returned with news that made Damien's heart stop. "There is a village 2 days' ride from here," the tracker said, breathless from his journey. "Last night, the villagers reported hearing wolf pups howling, not once, but twice, in perfect harmony, a sound so strong it carried for miles. The old folk there say it is a sign that such howls only come from royal blood newly born under a full moon." Damien was already moving before the tracker finished speaking, calling for his fastest riders, his heart hammering with a hope he barely dared to feel. Could it be her? Could fate have truly given him a second chance? He rode through the night without rest, his warriors struggling to keep pace with the desperate fury of his speed. As dawn began to break over the hills, painting the sky in soft gold and rose, they reached the small village nestled between the forested slopes. He found the bakery first, and the old woman who owned it pointed him, wide-eyed, toward a small room above the shop, where a healer named Greta had been assisting a birth through the long night. Damien climbed the stairs 2 at a time, his warriors waiting anxiously below, and pushed open the door. There she was. Elena sat propped against a stack of pillows, exhaustion etched deep into her face, her chestnut hair damp with sweat, but her eyes fierce and alert the moment she saw him standing in the doorway. In her arms, wrapped in soft woolen blankets, were 2 newborns, a boy and a girl, their tiny faces peaceful in sleep, and around each of their small eyes, faint silver rings shimmered in the early morning light, the unmistakable mark of Crown Pack royalty. "Elena," Damien breathed, taking a step forward. "Stop," she said, her voice steady despite her weariness. "You do not get to walk in here after everything and simply say my name." He stopped immediately, his hands falling to his sides, his chest aching at the sight of her guarding their children as fiercely as any alpha queen would. "I was wrong," he said, his voice breaking with the weight of 9 months of regret. "I let fear and old wounds cloud my judgment. I believed lies spun by a man who wanted to protect his own power, and I sent away the one person fate chose for me. I have spent every day since regretting it. I do not deserve your forgiveness, Elena, but I am asking for it anyway, not for my sake, for theirs." He looked at the twins, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "They deserve a father who will fight for them, and you deserve a mate who will never again doubt what his heart already knows." Elena studied him for a long moment, searching his face for any trace of the cold king who had turned his back on her in that hall. She found none. Only a man broken open by loss, standing before her with nothing left to hide behind. "You hurt me," she said quietly. "Deeply. That does not disappear because you found us." "I know," Damien said. "I am not asking you to forget it. I am asking for the chance to earn back what I threw away." Slowly, carefully, Elena shifted the twins in her arms and allowed him to step closer. He knelt beside the bed, his large hands trembling as he reached out to touch his children for the first time, tears finally spilling down his face as the boy's tiny fingers curled instinctively around his own. "Their names?" he asked softly. "I have not decided," Elena admitted. "I was waiting." "For what?" "For their father to be worthy of choosing with me." Damien looked up at her, something fragile and hopeful passing between them. "Let me be worthy, Elena. Give me the chance." That morning, as the sun rose fully over the village, Damien returned to Crown territory, not as a man defeated by his own mistakes, but as an alpha king, ready to make things right. Before the full council and the entire pack, he exposed Councilman Arden's betrayal, stripping him of his title and banishing him from Crown lands forever. He restored Elena's name and honor before every wolf who had witnessed her rejection, declaring publicly what his heart had always known, but his fear had refused to accept. Elena returned to Crown territory not as a rejected envoy, but as its rightful Luna. Her twins carried proudly through the gates as the pack howled in celebration, the sound rising into the morning sky like a promise fulfilled. The completion of their bond was slow and careful, built not on the desperation of fate alone, but on trust earned day by day, patience shown in every small gesture, forgiveness given freely but never taken for granted. Months later, beneath a sky full of stars, the Crown Pack gathered for the traditional sunrise ceremony to welcome the twins formally as heirs to the throne. Elena stood beside Damien, her hand in his, watching their children sleep peacefully in the arms of proud pack members, eager to hold the future of their people. "I will never again let fear choose for me," Damien whispered to her, as the first light of dawn broke over the horizon. "Not fear of betrayal, not fear of loss. Nothing will ever come before you again." Elena leaned her head against his shoulder, feeling for the first time since that terrible night in the Great Hall, a peace she had thought she might never find. The bond between them, once broken by doubt, now stood stronger than ever, tested by fire and mended by truth. And as the sun rose fully over Crown territory, casting golden light over the pack gathered in celebration, the twins stirred gently in their sleep, marked forever by the silver rings of royal blood, born of a love that had nearly been lost, but ultimately, unmistakably, found.